Hello folks, welcome to The Edge of Asparagus and part 4 of making a 3D top-down shooter in Godot. By the end of this episode, we'll be able to damage enemies and kill them once their hit points reach 0. We'll also create a simple grid texture and add it to the ground. So when the bullet is deleted, let's go to the bullet scene and the bullet script. When the bullet's deleted, it just says I hit you and then it deletes itself. But it doesn't actually do any damage, and the body that is hit never actually gets notified. It doesn't realize that it's hit. So we need some structure that will allow a body to be hit, have hit points, kill it when it dies, or at least let it know when it's supposed to die, and other stuff like that. So we're going to create a stats node on the enemy. So let's open the enemy scene here, and right click, add child node. This is just going to be a plain node, not a spatial. It's not going to be part of the 3D world here. And we'll call it stats. And we'll give it a script. So anything that might take damage, we can drop this node onto it. We can probably want to save the branch as a scene so that it's its own scene, not necessarily just for the enemy. We could put it on the player, and we will later. So let's go to the stats scene now, and the stats script by itself, and we'll create a few variables. So we're going to want each object that can get hit will have a maximum hit point. So we'll create that as an exported variable. Export var max underscore HP, and we'll just set a default to something like 10. Then they'll also have a current hit points, and by default that we'll want that to be the max. And we're gonna have to create a few functions here. So one thing it might do is it might take damage. So we'll create a function take hit. Take hit. So it was hit by something, and when we use the take hit method, we'll provide it with some damage. So this object is taking a hit and it's getting a certain amount of damage. So when we take that damage, we will subtract it from the hit points. So we'll go hit points minus equals 1. And for now, let's just print so we know I'm hit. And then we can actually also give it, just so we have some information, we can print out the current hit points. Oops. And then I'm going to add a little slash here, so it's kind of like I have 2 hit points out of my max. And we'll get that updated. Okay. And finally, if we run out of hit points, current hit points are less than or equal to 0, then we want to die. So let's create a die function, which will do whatever we want to do if that thing dies. Okay. And I guess we want to queue free it, right? We want to destroy it. Now, there's a problem here, but we'll clean it up later. That's not going to work. Okay, so we can take a hit and we can die. So let's go back to the bullet. And now what we want to do is we want to find the stats node, that body's stats node. So if I hit an enemy, then the body will be the enemy. It'll be this thing. And then we're going to find its stats node, and then we're going to call the stats nodes. Oops, sorry. Back to the script here. Back to the bullet script. So we've hit a body, and the bullet is deleting itself. Now, let's check if the body has a stats node, and we can use the hasNode method. Stats. Notice how this didn't autocomplete for us, again, which is super helpful. And that's because on area body entered, we haven't told it what kind of variable a body is, and we can do that. We know at least it's going to be some kind of node, and that'll give us some basic completion. So let's give it that node type hint by adding a colon and then the type there. So now if we go if body dot, we should at least get the nodes methods. Has node, and we're going to look for the stats node. And if it has a stats node, then we're going to get it. Okay, let's just create a variable to hold that node. So we can go body.find underscore node, good, and we'll do the same thing, stats, okay. So we have it. Now we're going to call the stats node, but the stats node here also isn't going to autocomplete. It does appear to know that it's a node of some sort, so it's giving us some node methods, but it's not giving us the custom methods that we wrote within our stats, right? So how we can fix that is if we go up into our stats script and we give it a class name, class underscore name, and we'll just call it stats. And now this will be clear that hole. This will now be registered in Godot, and we can say the var stats node, and same thing, we can give it a type hint that this is a stats. That didn't work. That did not appear for us. So what if we go equals as stats? Can we do that? There we go. Okay, so now the object that is returned by this, it is going to be cast to a stats object, and we know that it's a stat. So now if we go start node dot, we should be able to take a hit. Yeah, see, now it can pull up all the custom functions we created here, take a hit and die. And right now we just want to, where are we going? I'm going to close the enemy and we'll work on the bullet here. Okay, so the stats node dot take hit, and we want to give it some damage. Does this bullet have damage? No, so we should probably create a new exported variable called damage. By default we'll set it to 1, and then we will tell the body's stats node that it's going to take a hit for that much damage. So let's see what happens here when I shoot this. Okay, they are taking hits. Let's clean up our debugging print statements. So I'm going to Control Shift F here to find in files is the shortcut before we went to search. So I'm going to once again go print and opening parentheses. We don't need looking for player. That's not what I want to do. I want to click here and Control K to comment out. Those are fine. I think that was the only one that was annoying me, right? We don't need to know we're hitting it. We know that's working. This is the one we want. Okay, so let's run this, and boom, 9 out of 10. 8 out of 10, 7 out of 10. Awesome. And it looks like it stopped taking damage after it reached 0. And the reason for that is because when we Q freed, when we deleted here, Q free, this is actually deleting itself. It's just deleting the stats nodes, which means the enemy no longer has the ability to get hit and take damage. But it continues to run around. So we need to deal with that. Somehow we need the stats node to delete its parent. And before we do that, I'm going to go to the level in 3D and delete my cube here, which obviously I created at some point. Control S to save. So if we go to the if we go back to the enemy scene, generally we only want parent nodes to manipulate the child nodes. We don't really want child nodes to be manipulating the parents. Instead, what we do is we tell the child nodes, what the child nodes do is they send a signal, and the parent can receive that signal, and then it can do things that it wants to do with its children or with itself, right? So we're going to do that. We're going to have the stats block send a signal, and the enemy is going to receive that. And then the enemy can, the parent node, the enemy kinematic body node can delete itself. So if we have the stats selected, and we go over here, click on node and check out the signals, there are not really any signals that make sense, and none of these would be fired when we need them to anyway. So we're going to create a custom signal, which is really easy to do. Up here with our variables, I'm going to type signal, and then we can name it whatever we want, and I'll call it my you died signal. You died signal. And then we just trigger that signal whenever we want that signal sent. So instead of Q freeing here and deleting the stats node, we're going to emit signal. And then we just give the name of the signal. So our signal's name is you died signal. It would be nice if that auto-completed, but it doesn't appear to know that it's there. I'm just going to copy and paste to make sure I don't have any typos. Okay, and cool enough, the you died signal appears over here beside in the node tab for us to connect. So let's connect that. We'll connect it to the enemy. So anytime the you died signal is sent, we want the enemy script to do something about it. By default, it's going to give a name on, and then the node that's generating the signal, and then the name of the signal. And I'm going to leave it as the default because it's handy. By looking at this, you can tell where it's coming from and usually what it's doing, especially if you give it a good name. Okay, so now we're in the enemy script here, and we have a new function on stats, you died signal. And here, the enemy is going to Q free itself. Let's see if that works. So I am going to go boom, boom, boom. So when this gets to 0, my hope is he disappears. Oh, he disappears! We killed him. We killed him. He's dead. I win. So this video was pretty short, so I'm going to take the opportunity to add one more kind of random thing to it, and that's add a grid to our floor. It's just going to make it look nicer when we play our game so that it's not blank like this, and we'll have a little grid for ourselves. And I'm just going to create it myself using a free program called Krita. You can download it. I'll put a link in the description. Pretty easy to use, and this is going to be super simple, so you can just follow along with me, or you can just get the texture directly in the video description as well. I'll put a link there. So I'm going to open Krita. Okay, I'm going to go to the File menu and click New, and here under Custom Document for Create a New Document, I'm going to choose a predefined image size, and if I scroll down, I can find the smallest texture here is 256 by 256. I'm going to use that, and all the other defaults should be fine. So we're going to have a little 256 pixel square. I'm going to use the scroll wheel to scroll out a tad. So we're going to go up to these 4 squares right here to choose a brush preset, and in the search down here I'm going to type in pixel. Krita comes with a bunch of predefined pixel brushes, which are pretty cool, and I'm just going to choose number 1 here, pixel art, basic pixel brush, and then I can click away over here, and so now I have a simple pixel brush. I'm going to go over on the left toolbar and I'm going to choose the rectangle, and over up here on the size I'm going to change my size to 6. Now if I select up here you'll get a blue outline, and I'm just going to hit the number 6 and enter, so I get exactly a pixel size of 6. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up into the top corner, and you should notice that the cursor is kind of snapping just because of all these little pixels, and you should be able to get it right on the corner. And I'm going to click and drag over down to the bottom corner and try and get it, want to get it exact here. And then you should get a black outline, and that's going to be 3 pixels wide. We had a 6 pixel wide brush, and it's going to be 3 on the inside, 3 on the outside of that rectangle. And that's all we want. Okay, we're going to go up into the File menu and choose Export. We're going to export this as an image. I'm going to navigate to my documents, the 3D game, and in here you're in the right location when you can see the Godot icon.png. And let's call this ground-grid.png. Save that. The compression, you want to max that out if it isn't already maxed out. And that's all we need. You can close Krita and carry on with Godot. So in Godot here, your ground grid should have appeared in the root of your file system resources here. So now here I have my ground grid, and with my ground CSG box selected, I'm going to come over here into the inspector and click on empty material, new spatial material, select the material, and expand albedo. Now here's where I'm going to drag my ground grid.png over into the texture, and it's going to show up really weird. It's going to fill up the whole thing. You can see the grid showing up around the outside, so we're going to have to tell it to scale and use the grid how we want it. Okay, now if we scroll down to UV1, I'm going to expand that and turn on Triplanar. Triplanar is kind of a fancy name for auto texturing our surface. So here you can see my grid is appearing, and it looks pretty good actually. However, I do want it to be scaled up double. I want the squares to be twice as large as they are. Kind of like, so each square is the size of our boxes and kind of our players. So the higher the scale, the more often the texture will repeat. So we want it to repeat less. We actually want the scale to go down, and I think we're gonna do 0.5. I'm just tabbing between the fields here for each of them, and that looks pretty good. The grid here is getting in the way. It's making it hard to see. So in the view menu, I'm just gonna turn off view grid. We don't need it anymore because we have our own. That looks great. It is offset, however, so we're gonna have to shift the grid over. If you click in one of these fields and drag, you can change the value and see what effect it's having. So it looks like we want this to be about this, probably 0.5. So let's set them all to 0.5. I'm just tabbing between the fields. Looks like I'm getting a little bit of lag here from my computer as it tries to recalculate, I guess. Let's try that again. 0.5, 0.5, 0.5. I cannot update my Z value for some reason, although it is changing. I'm not sure what's going on with my editor. I'm typing in 0.5. But it's staying at 0. don't know what's going on there. Something really weird is happening with my UI there. But it is at 0.5 because it looks great. Another option you'll probably want to set if you go up to flags is turn on World Triplanar. This will cause other objects you have in your level, other grounds and walls and stuff that have the same texture. It will cause the texture to be continuous among all the objects that have this material. So, for example, if we wanted to see that, let's minimize this. Notice that when I put on World Triplanar there, my offsetting changed a little bit on the y-axis. So I'm going to scroll down here to my offset and turn off y. And that appears to be good. Note Z is 0.5, just for some reason my editor is not showing it. Okay, so I'm scrolling up here and I'm going to click the little back arrow to get back to the inspector for the CSG ground. And under this material, I'm going to right click it and I'm going to save it. And we'll just save it in our default again, and we'll call this our level grid. Okay, so it should show up down here. We have a level grid. And if I select one of these other cubes, let's say this box right here. Now it's not on the grid, so it'll be interesting to see if the texture actually continues around that box. If I drop that material there, and look, it did it. That's pretty cool, eh? So if you want those for your obstacles, you can do that. And if I dropped it on the little box back there, it again would match the texture through all the objects in the world that have that material. Okay, but I'm going to reset the box, and I'm going to reset that one as well. Oh boy, except it didn't switch back because I didn't save this purple. So you know what? Since I'm using this purple texture all the time, let's make that its own resource too, in case something like this happens. Before I had just duplicated these boxes, and so it got the material with it. So let's go to, which box is this? This is my, for me it's box number 2. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to save this material, and it's going to be my obstacle material. And I could go and change the purple later, and at least that way it'll change all my obstacles. So now if I go back and select box 3 with my obstacle material, I can drop it in, and my box there, drop it in, and let's just make sure that worked. That if I go to my albedo, they're all the same texture. Yeah, they should change around, right? So, okay, I'm going to reset that back. No! Okay, now we have a grid on our level. Pretty cool.